What's up, mi gente? It's your homegirl, Motuika. Welcome to Xicana, más Xingona, where I talk about my life, unscripted, unedited, just going with the flow. So today I'm going to share my love story, me and my husband's love story. Me and my husband been together 25 years, going on 26 this year. I'm so thankful, so blessed. We have 2 kids together. Our daughter will be 25, our son will be 21. We met in 1999. I was walking home from school with my cousin down this alley in Bell Gardens to go to the youth center. My husband was driving down that same alley with his homie to go to an auto shop. I said, "What's up?" He said, "What's up?" I got his pager number. I always say it was a month after that I paged him. He says it's 2 to 3 months. I'm going to say 2 months because of the school schedule. So that would have had to been in August. So like I said, when I paged him in October, actually the first night that I paged him, it was actually my cousin. Our hangout was the payphone. And he called back and he actually talked to my cousin because me and my cousin used to sound the same on the phone. So she passed as me. When she hung up, she said, "Okay, he's picking you up." I don't remember if it was a Friday or Saturday. The point is, our first date was October 15th. He picked me up. We went and picked up his girl cousin and one of his homies. And we had a double date. We went to the beach, walked down the beach, walked down the pier, had conversation. It was nice, beautiful. It was the first time I was able to talk to a guy and he actually listened and have conversation, and that he was a gentleman. He was nice, which for me was weird because I wasn't used to that. I was always used to, these thugs. And so, well, when the night ended, he dropped me off at home. And because he didn't take the first step, I ended up rushing him. I rushed him. I was the first one to make the move and kiss him because I seen he wasn't doing it. So I did that. And our second date was October 19th. He picked me up from school. He wrote me a letter, which was beautiful, with a picture, a rose. It was just nice. We kicked it at a park. It was really nice. And we just hanged out that whole night, that whole day. And when the nighttime came, he asked me to be his girl. I said yes. And we've been together since. And that same night, we dedicated songs to each other. Our song is "For the Love of You" by the Isley Brothers. And yeah, that's when our love started. And I am so blessed. And I love him from here to the moon. That same weekend, that was our first weekend together. We spent it at his cousin's house. She lent us her room for the weekend. And yeah, it was nice, fun. We partied. And like I said, we fell in love with each other. And it was so, I thought I had fall in love or you're sprung on somebody, but no, when you find true love and you feel it and it's from the gut and you feel those butterflies and you can't wait to see him, you can't wait to talk to him again, honestly, that is true love. And love also comes with life, and that's what me and my husband have experienced in these 26 years. Is love is life, which comes with a lot of stuff. And that's the mistake a lot of people realize, that think that love is going to pay the bills. No, when you have true love with each other, you will go through life and get through it together. And fun fact, this is something a lot of my family don't know, but I didn't get pregnant until February of 2000. And 1999, in December, my husband already had proposed to me without even being pregnant. My husband got my name tattooed on him with my kisses, and we were already talking about a future with each other, of living with each other, way before we got pregnant. We didn't even plan on getting pregnant like that. So before I got pregnant with my daughter, we were actually engaged. We were actually already making plans for the future. And by December, I was already almost staying with him. I was already spending weekends with him, and during the week, sometimes when he would take me to school, or he would pick me up from school, vice versa. And I think in January, I was staying with him a little bit more. And then he was staying with his brother at the time. And then his brother moved out from that apartment. And then we moved. We stood there. And that's where we lived and raised our kids for, I want to say 16 years. 15. Well, I was there 16 years, but we raised our kids there for 15 years in that same house. And yeah, we used to write love letters to each other. I remember I used to have to go to the payphone to page him or to call him at his house. And my dad, G, and my mom, they had a Nokia phone, I want to say, at the time, when cell phones were barely coming out. And remember, it was the Motorola's and then I think the Nokias. Well, they allowed me to give him the number, and I was able to call, because on that phone you also had to add minutes. So, but they allowed me to give him the number, and I could talk to him more, because my mom and dad liked him, so that way I don't have to go to the payphone to talk to him. Of course, we weren't staying on the phone for hours, but they let me do that. So that was nice, and I appreciate them for that. So I love our love story, because for me it was something beautiful. It was something I never experienced before. Writing love letters. We still have to this day our letters we used to write each other, our notes, our love letters, our, even when we lived with each other, we still wrote love letters to each other. Also too, I have a lot of dry roses that my husband got me. Now, I had never received flowers or anything like that, balloons, anything, teddy bears, nothing ever from any guy before. And with my husband, he was detallista like that. He still is to this day, like, and that's what I love about him, because he doesn't wait to an anniversary or a birthday to give me flowers. Like, just when he feels like it and wants to, he, just because it's a Saturday, just because it's a Tuesday, he'll bring me flowers, even to this day. And that's something that I love and appreciate that, and so that's what he did in the beginning, give me flowers, bears, stuff like that. And it was nice. It felt beautiful. I felt love. His hugs were like, when I hugged him, it felt like I was safe. I was loved. And I actually think I needed that. It was just something beautiful. There's no words to explain how I feel or how I want to say things. And then there's stuff that I'm trying to keep for myself, because I don't want everything out there. Because, you want to keep certain things just for you and your spouse. And I do remember that for his birthday, I gave him flowers and balloons. And he was embarrassed because, guys don't get flowers and balloons like that. And he was embarrassed and happy, but embarrassed because he had never got that either. My family loved him. Well, at least like my mom, my dad, G, My brothers and sisters, they all liked him from the beginning. And his family as well, they liked me too. Throughout the years, we have had challenges, but that's part of a relationship in life. And but for the most part, I can say our families have been good. And throughout the years, you learn throughout your life experience. And I'll get into that more later. But like I said, for the most part, our families, we have a good relationship with both of our families. Um, I'm the oldest out of my family, and he's the youngest out of his family. I'm a family of 6 kids. My husband's a family of 4 kids. Um, we kind of had a similar background when it came to our dads. We kind of, with his dad and then his stepdad, the same thing with me. Um, and then how our mothers had to be the pilas and be the fuertes to maintain and keep their kids going. So, and they're both strong women that actually both came from domestic violence background. And the only difference with me and my husband is that since I was the oldest, all my siblings were little, so my mom had little kids. With his mom, my husband was the youngest, and all his siblings already were married and had kids already. And so she was already a grandma, and my mom became a grandma when I got pregnant. And I think my mom and my suegra are, I want to say 20 years apart, maybe 20, 25 years apart. And, but yeah, we, my husband is a type of man that listens and pays attention to detail. Now, in the beginning, I was like that too. Throughout the years, I have changed and I forgot a lot of stuff, and I don't pay attention to details anymore. But my husband, to this day, he's never forgot an anniversary. We've never forgot our dates. Um, he's never forgot birthdays, anything, and he remembers a lot of stuff. He pays attention to conversation, and that's something I love about him too. Because he's not like a regular guy that just like shuts you out. Like, he listens, he pays attention. And even when I'm talking shit, even if he wants to tune me out, he still fucking pays attention when I'm talking shit. But our first year of being together, half of the year was beautiful and no problems whatsoever. And then throughout the middle of my pregnancy, we started to have a little challenges. It wasn't major, but throughout our relationship, our first 5 years was challenging. And the 20 years or 21 years after that has not been as a challenge, because we learned how to mature, we learned how to live life and love each other and compromise. Um, and I'll share a lot of little stuff here and there. Me and my husband, we celebrate the day we got together that's why it's 26 years. We got married in 2003. We got married in 2003. Why am I say 2003? We got married in 2003. And we did a lot of stuff backwards. And our relationship is unique because we do things different than regular marriages. Um, When I came into my marriage, I came in with a lot of trust issues, because of what I seen in my own household with my mom and dad, T, and then what I seen in other people's homes. And one thing is, I distanced myself from my homegirls. Why? Because I always seen and knew that when you let your homegirls around your man and in your household, they will screw them. They will try to ruin that. They will try to sleep with them. They will try this, that, and the third. And so, because I seen it in my own household growing up, I did not want that for my household. So let's back up a little bit. When I was young, I would be called out because I didn't use the word love. And I had a thing that I will not use the word love with anybody if I didn't feel it. And I had never used that word to anybody else that I was with until I got with my husband. And to be honest, I don't even remember who said I love you first, if I did or he did. I have to ask him about that, because I got to ask him about a lot of stuff, because he remembers a lot and I don't. I have forgot a lot of stuff. I think it's just life in general. But, well, maybe and maybe not, because why does he still remember, right? But anyways, so I used to have a homegirl that used to give me shit on why my relationships weren't lasting, because I didn't give my all and didn't show love to other people. And like I would tell them, this is just an experience. I don't feel that, so I'm not going to say what I don't feel. And so I had to, and then also too, when it came to the gang life, I told one of my homegirls, like, this is just an experience for me. The day I fall in love, this is all going behind. I'm leaving all this. And so when I got with my husband and we got serious, like I said, in December of 99, we were already engaged and everything. So that's when I stopped hanging around. I think in the middle of January, I stopped hanging around with my homegirls. And then when I moved in with my husband in February, I was already staying with him like every day, but officially moved in with him is when, after I got pregnant and I told my mom and dad, G, that I was moving in with him. So that's when I decided that gang life, those homegirls, were all behind me, because I knew if I would have bring them around, what could happen. Not only did, I trusted some of my homegirls, but I knew a lot of them, what, how scandalous they were, so I didn't want that. And to be truthful, I was trying my best to do everything different the way I seen my mom and dad T live. And even though we had our problems and we had our issues, I will say that we changed a lot of stuff. And that's another thing. Me and my husband tried to change traditions and try to break chains, for our kids as well, and how we raised them. Now, there's still stuff that we kept, like tradition, that later on our kids had to teach us to let those things go. But for the most part, we try to do a lot of things different from everybody else, the normal. And I say that we're not normal people like everybody in the world, and that's what I love. I'm a person, I'll talk about me a little bit more later, but I'm a person that likes to be unique and different. I don't like to be the same as the girl next to me. And even though in life we do a lot of similar things together, not together, the same, because that's just life, the world we live in, the government system, everything. And so, yeah, so that's something that me and my husband have done throughout these years. And in our household, when I moved in with my husband, he lived with his mom. So his mom at the time was somewhat disabled, and throughout the years, she has got worse. And so we became her caretakers. So we live with her, she's lived with us, and it's been like that. And so around February of 2000, I know exactly where I got pregnant at. It was at my husband's cousin's house. She lived down the street from where my husband lived. And at the time, my husband was living with his brother. He was living in that house. And there was an altercation that I won't get into. And we kind of left, which was me, him, and his mom. And we went to go stay with his cousin for a couple of weeks. And then his brother left the house, and he left the house to us. So he moved out and went to do his thing. And he told us the house was there for us to move in and take over the house, the rent and whatever. So we went back and lived there, and we lived, like I said, we lived there for 16 years. My husband lived there for more because he was living there prior. But for 16 years, we lived in that house. And so in February, like I said, I got pregnant at his cousin's house. And when I found out I think it was like the end of February, the last week of February, time I went with my mom to tell her I was pregnant. Now, mind you, me and my husband were excited. We were shocked and excited at the same time. This is something I think I really wanted. It's not like we planned, but I will say, sometimes I feel guilty because we were using protection, but that one day I said no, that I didn't want to use protection, and that's when I got pregnant. And for me, it's a beautiful thing, and for my husband as well. But I also feel like guilty because I'm the one that said not to use protection, right? And so without even asking my husband if that's what he wanted or not. But in the end, we stuck it out together. We didn't question each other. We didn't question why did we get pregnant. Nothing. We were both excited. We went to 2 clinics. One clinic we went to in Bell Gardens to check, and it came out positive. And then we went to another clinic in Downey and got the blood work. And time I went to my mom, I think it was the next week, to tell her and my dad, Gigi, that we were pregnant. I already had my birth control going, my doctor's appointments going, my wake appointments going. I already had everything in order. So when I went to my mom and told her I was pregnant, we had everything in order of how we were going to live, what we were going to do, and that I was going to move in officially with him. And the day I told my mom, of course, she cried. You know, I was only 17. Of course, that's probably something she didn't want, but she welcomed me with open arms. She said that she was going to be there for me. And, you know, I thought it was going to be worse, but, you know, she was not happy, but happy at the same time. And now this is when things get serious. Like I said, my mom was happy. Not happy, but happy. She accepted it. She didn't give us trouble about it, nothing. And she agreed, okay, even though I was a minor, that I go to his house. I kept going to school and everything. And me, when I moved in with my husband, I thought I was the shit, that I didn't have to go to school. And no, he said, no, you're going to school every day. And so I went to school my whole pregnancy. Well, half of my pregnancy, I went to school. He took me every day. And then in the middle of my pregnancy, I ended up getting home studies. At the time, I was a junior, 11th grade, I think. Yeah, I was 11th grade at the time. So I wasn't a senior yet. And so I ended up getting home studies, and I had home studies all the way until I graduated, which would have been the next year. Because I graduated, I think, in 2001. And so right now I'm going to end this before I get into the serious stuff. But then at the end of the day, I got pregnant with my daughter. 4 years later, we got pregnant with my son. Between that, we had a miscarriage as well, which I'll talk about later on. I want to make an episode about my pregnancies later on. But, well, I'm going to get into it in the next video. But we were happy. I got pregnant in 2000. We were already engaged, living with each other, doing the life thing, rent, bills, all that. And then in 2003, we get married by church. And we get married in Mexicali, Mexico. And I'll talk about that later on. And then right before we got married, I had a miscarriage. And then in 2004, we got pregnant with my son. And we've been living happily ever after, which still comes with challenging. No marriage, no relationship is perfect. Now, if somebody tells you their relationship, their marriage, their partnership, whatever relationship you got going is perfect, they're lying out of their ass. Because real love, real relationship is life and challenges. Is even if you love each other, when it comes to bills, when it comes to your children, even when people that have stepkids involved, it is challenging. When you got family involved, when you have work involved, those are challenging. And so no relationship is perfect and says they never argued, they never had a fight, they have never went through hardships and struggles. Everybody has. Now, if you haven't, kudos to you, but there's no marriage. And usually people that are not in a relationship don't realize that until they're in a relationship. And that's what happened with me, with my family. None of them were really in a true relationship to really know about life, and until later on when they started going through their shit. But yeah, that's why it's not good to compare your relationship with anybody else's, because we're all different. We all go through different things in life, and we're all a different person. But anyways, like I was saying, me and my husband's relationship is beautiful. I remember when we were first starting off, we would play card games, Uno, cards, board games, and I remember my brother-in-law, I think it was, when I was pregnant with my first pregnancy, they would be like, oh, the baby's gonna come out jugando. We used to play Super Nintendo, all that. Because we like doing that. We have that in common. Until this day, we still do that with us as a family here. We play cards, we play board games. We don't call it family night, but we have when we're in the mood and we want to, we spend time with each other. And um, either I'll say, you guys want to play, or my kids will come and say, you guys want to play, or my husband. So that's something that we had. Me and my husband used to love watching wrestling when it was WWE, and then when it was WWF, and then went to WWE. And we used to watch all that. A lot of things we have in common are music. Um, we like mostly a lot of the same music. Me, it's a little different because I like a lot of different genres and like rock and stuff like that. And my husband don't like that. He likes it, but doesn't. He's not really into it. Like, he likes the Doors and all that, but and he don't like soft pop or nothing like that. But for the most part, oldies, old school Spanish, Spanish rock, stuff like that, we have in common. Rancheras, things like that. Sports, the same theme. We like sports. He's not into sports as much as I am, deep in it, but we like sports. There's a lot of stuff we have in common. Um, what else? Now, we have been through challenges. We've had our ups, we've had our downs. Some of our family members have seen our ups and our downs. Um, Living with my mother-in-law, my in-laws are there, so they've seen a little bit more of our challenges than my family. The thing is, with my family, I've never talked about my issues with my family. And to be honest, I don't talk about my problems to nobody. This is the first time I'm talking about stuff on here that I've never talked to anybody about. When it comes to family and friends, I'm the counselor. I'm the therapist for them. I give them advice. I give them options. I give them, me pidan mi consejo, and I'll give it to them. Sometimes they don't use it, and then it pisses me off because it's like, why did you ask if, you know? But you won't see me there talking with a friend while they're talking on their partner. I'm not going to tell you my problems. Now, I'll probably talk about my family problems with people, like issues that I had with my mom in the past or certain things like that, right? But my marital problems, no. Now, in my relationship, even with my mom, to this day, my mom gets pieces here and there of our testimony. There's stuff that my husband says that I tell my husband I've never told them stuff like that, or I don't tell them that. There's things that I have told my mom in testimony of our relationship that I never told her back then. But to sit there and say this and that, no. Now, like I said, when I got, for me, I was the happiest I can be. I was happy. I was safe. But when I got pregnant with my daughter, I was the happiest person in the world. This person is growing inside me, and I'm feeling happy and everything. But because I was the first one in my family to get pregnant at an early age, besides the adults that already had did it, it took a turn in my pregnancy. Now, why I'm talking about the relationship of me and my husband, our pregnancy and everything has to go all with it. So this is our love story of love, life, challenges, the ups and the downs. I'm not perfect. Near I think I'm perfect. My husband's not perfect. Our relationship is not perfect. And but neither is yours. Neither is your man, your woman, your kids, your grandparents, your parents, your aunts, your uncles, ninas, ninos, the Pope, the president. No one's life is perfect. No one's relationship is perfect, and none of us are perfect. So we all make mistakes in our relationships, and it just doesn't have to be love relationships. It could be your relationship with your family, your friends, your work, your co-workers, everything. And I've always had a good balance of keeping everything in balance with my family, even if they don't see it that way. I have taught my kids and told my kids, and this is only something I tell them, un consejo, if they take it, bueno, si no, no. But I have told them, always keep a balance. When you're with a pareja, always keep a balance with your friends, your work, your co-workers, everything. Just because you're one person, don't shut out the whole world. You know what I mean? And some people do that. Some people, because they're with with their man or their woman or whatever, they will shut down all their family members. They'll shut down their co-workers. They'll shut down their friends, their best friends. Now, for me, when I got with my husband, I didn't shut down my family. I didn't shut down my friends. I decided to leave the friend group that I had because I didn't trust girls in my household. I didn't trust that. So I chose that. Now, I still kept in touch with certain friends from afar or calling. Back then it wasn't text, it was calling or through letters or school. To this day, I still have relationships with homegirls that I went to school with. We don't see each other. We don't talk all the time, but I still have a relationship with them. And so, and with my family, I did not shut out my family. They chose to shut themselves out. Now, what I'm about to share is not throwing anything at nobody, but this is part of my story. This is a part of my life. And we have talked over it. And if we didn't, we got over it. Throughout the years, I have learned how to let things go. Not for them, for me. I have learned to understand that we were young. And maybe they didn't go through what I went through. But I know that in their relationships, I don't know every detail, but I know, and they had issues in their relationship. So I learned how to compromise and understand that they didn't know, they didn't know better. And so when I got pregnant, like I said, I went to my mom. She was fine. I don't know if she told my grandma another story or not. What she's told me, she didn't. Now, me and my grandma, okay, so my tight circle was my grandma, my cousin, and my mom. And I was very close with my family, my aunts, my uncles, this, that, and the third. Cousins, it was only a little bit because we were the older ones. The little ones, for me, they were too little. So even though we were close, we weren't close. You know what I mean? And now they're all adults as well, but we were a tight family. My grandma was the foundation of our family. And when she passed away, the foundation fell and no one's the same. Everybody has their own groups and does, we all communicate through social media and co-assist, co-talk to each other. But it's not that close bond we had anymore. And I will say my grandma was the foundation of her kids, her grandkids, her sister, and their kids. Once she left, that was it. Now, my grandma was the second mom for me. And my grandma passed away. But even though she passed away, I love her deeply. and dearly. But I was hurt with her for a while. I have learned how to heal and forgive, not for her, but for me. Um, and I probably hurt her too. I probably hurt my mom, my grandma, my cousins, my family by getting pregnant. But I, it's not like I did it on purpose. You know what I mean? They all had their lives going. And before I got with my husband, one of my cousins, these are not stories for me to tell, but this is part of some of it. One of my cousins had moved out with her boyfriend, I think a day before her 18th birthday or a week, I'm not too sure. And she lived with him, but she didn't get pregnant. But of course, I'm pretty sure her mom was not okay with it. But then that was it. It was the end. I didn't see my grandma make a fuss out of it. Nobody else made a fuss at it. They got over it, whatever. My other cousin that I was close to, she had a boyfriend and she was with him for a while, and she would spend a night at his house. And of course, she didn't live with him or didn't get pregnant by him, but no one made a fuss there. Now, when I got pregnant and got with my husband, it turned to a big fuss. It turned into, of course, I know I was 17. I know I was still in school. I know I said I didn't want kids because I didn't like kids. But now I was having a kid of my own. I was carrying it inside me. I was feeling it inside me. And you can't take that feeling away. And that feeling will change you. That feeling will humble you. And when you're with somebody that is so good, so pure, so loved, that loves you, for your looks, for your body, for your brain, for your heart, your soul, it's a beautiful thing. And so, my grandma was the big chismosa at the time. And this is not to talk bad at my grandma. She's not here to defend herself, and I know that. And this is going to hurt my family, but it's the truth. I'm not going to sugarcoat it because we all have flaws. We all have made mistakes. I have myself. I'm a chismosa myself, and I have done things too. But I'm talking about what hurted me. My grandma, instead of being there for me, how she was my whole life, she decided to, it hurted her that I got pregnant. It hurted her that I was getting married, moving in or married. And so whatever she would make up and tell the other people, they would believe it. And so I'm going to tell you a story. I don't know if I was 2 months pregnant or 3 months pregnant. I'm not too sure of the date. I was at school, and me and my cousin went to the same school, and we had the same kind of little group of homegirls friends, or we all knew each other. Everybody knew everybody. And my cousin is telling me that me clamó in the middle of changing periods, that why was I having a baby, that I thought I thought you didn't like kids, and this and that. And supposedly, I don't know how true this is because I never got the full answer. I never went and asked my aunt directly to this day. I know this from my grandma. Supposedly, they called the school and to see if I went to school that day. Supposedly they talked to my mom, and my mom changed her mind and agreed that this was a bad idea for me to have a baby. And my mom says that she did not agree, but according to what my grandma said, basically they brainwashed her to be okay with me having an abortion. And supposedly that day, my aunt and my other cousin was going to pick me up at lunchtime, and they were going to go take me to have an abortion without my consent. And hearing that my mom was okay with that. I've talked to my mom after. She says she was not okay with it. They did call her and talk shit to her. That why is she letting her daughter move in? Why is she letting her daughter have a baby? I don't know the whole true story to this day. And I don't want to ask any questions now. It's done. It's over with. Me and my daughter have cured. Me and my family have healed from that. And I talk to them cool to this day. I got over it. I learned how to understand and forgive. And but it still hurts. And this is part of my story. And in that school, there was this one guy. He was like, I used to call him Biggie Smalls, even though I hate Biggie Smalls. But I used to call him Biggie Smalls. He was from Bell Gardens. He was from a neighborhood called Junior Mafia in Bell Gardens. And he used to, slang whatever, and he always had his gold chains on. He always thought he was the shit. He was this tall, chunky guy. Not that chunky, but he was tall, chunky. And I hated him. I hate looking at him. I don't know why. He just gave me a bad vibe. He never did nothing physical to me, but I just didn't like him. Era muy creído. And that day that my cousin and me were arguing back and forth, where we were trying to switch from one class to another, and she's telling me all this, that they're going to take me to go get an abortion. I'm not going to get into every detail of what we said to each other. But I stood there crying, standing there crying. He came to me and said, that one guy that I didn't like, I guess he heard. Well, there was a bunch of people there, they were hearing. And he said, that fuck what they're saying, you have your baby. Out of all the people that were there, he's the only one that came up to me. The guy that I fucking hated. He's the only one that came up to me and told me that it would be okay. That he would be there. And that if I wanted to have my baby, to have my baby. And I'll never fucking forget that. Because it was like God was showing me something. I don't know what it was. That day, one of my friends gave me a ride home. And when I got there, mind you, at the time that I went home, it was to my husband's house. We were living together already. Excuse me. When I get home from school, my husband was at work. And at the time, my mother-in-law, we lived with my mother-in-law. And when I get there, she's making lunch for my brother-in-law. And this is my husband's older brother. And at the time, my husband and his brother weren't talking. And so he was there. And my swag was like, what are you doing home? And I just sat on the couch. And I just started sobbing. I just started crying. And she's like, ¿Qué te pasa? ¿Qué te pasa? And then my brother-in-law came and told me, "What's wrong with you?" And I told him what had happened. And I'll never forget it. I'll never forget his words. Because even though him and his brother weren't talking, he was always there for us. And he's still always there for us. And he told me, "Do you want to have this baby?" I said yes. He goes, "Okay. You're going to have this baby. And we're going to be here for you. Y no importa. Pero your baby will always have frijoles on that table. No matter what. Nada te va a hacer falta. We're going to be here for you." And that's the support I needed. And I appreciate it and so thankful for his words. Because those words changed my life. And so, yeah, like I said, I want to give a big shout out because my husband's family was there for me when my family wasn't. And I'm not just talking about, like, my mom was there, but I'm not the support that I needed at that time. They were there. And I would always be grateful, no matter what we've been through, no matter the good, the bad, I will always be fucking grateful. Because they didn't let me down. Not once did they talk about abortion. And that's when I knew I would be okay. We would be okay. And so, of course, the relationship with my family wasn't the same for a lot of years because of what people take and chismean. Another thing that hurted me was that my grandma told them, and everybody would say, that I married a cholo, a big-time gangster, a drug dealer. And only if they knew that, yeah, my husband was from a gang, is from a gang. Yes, my husband was the cholo. But only if they knew all the other people I was with prior, prison, jail, not just a drug dealer, but multiple things that were bad. They don't know because I didn't bring them around. To me, my husband, yeah, he was a cholo. But to me, he was a clean cholo to me. I always joke around and say that him and his homeboys are paisa cholos. And I'm just messing around. I'm just joking around. But because I was used to being around, my husband's put in work in Friends Neighborhood and his homeboys have too, But for me, I was used to being around veteranos, cholos, And I was around that environment. My family didn't see it. So the first one that came around, which is my husband, they right away labeled him without even getting to know him. Right away labeled him. I don't know if my grandma was jealous because it's like if my husband took me away from her, but that was not the case. Another thing that my grandma had, and even my mom, that my husband controlled me. And that's not true. Because I chose not to do things because they were not going to control me. When they wanted me to do something, I would say no. And they would think he was controlling me. But it was because I did not want to do it. And me and my mom used to have this issue before I was even married, where she tried to control me, and it was an issue. But right away they blamed it on my husband. Another thing that hurted me is that my grandma wasn't big on fiestas and holidays and stuff. But in 2000, she had a Christmas party at her house. And we went. I think my daughter was a month old, or no, 2 months old, because it was in December. And we went over. That's probably the last time I was around the whole family, because after that my grandma divorced, and she left that house, and nothing was the same anymore. But for me, nothing was the same no more once I got married. And not because I chose that, because my family chose to do that. And I'm not saying I'm perfect. Yeah, I was young. I was 17, and I got pregnant and moved in with somebody. But let me tell you something right now, and not to put down my family members, but none of them, they all had to do the same thing. They all had to go through their own shit, their own relationship, their own life issues, their own challenges with their parejas, with their marriages, with their families, with their kids, with their grandkids. And maybe now they'll understand. But this Christmas, and this is not to talk down, and the reason why I say that, because I don't want none of you to get all butthurt. This is something that's in the past, but it's my life, my story. And I don't have any hate or bad against none of you no more. I got over it. I learned how to heal. But even though they heal, like I said, scars still stay in here. And so our family, none of us are perfect. We all have body shapes different, which is nothing. I'm not body shaming nobody. But on my grandma's side of the family, some of them got big boobs. And if they got boobs, they probably got it from their dad's side or the other side of the family. But I think all of us had a good size of boobs. Now, when it came to butts, most of us are all flat. And if you're chunky, fluffy, you got chicken legs. And then the top looks like a balloon. That's how we all are. Or we look like we're pregnant. And I'm not down talking nobody. There's nothing wrong with that. We're all beautiful in our own skin. But that's how my weight is too. For many years that I was fat after pregnancy and stuff, everybody thought I looked pregnant all the time. But my grandma's family and their family, and that comes from their dad's side, because my grandma's sister and all them have the same issue. And so, which is nothing wrong with that. And my grandma was fluffy almost her whole life, but she had a good body. She had her hips. She didn't have a big booty, but her hips gave her like a booty, so it looked like she had a booty. But my grandma flaunt her body, her sexiness, everything. My grandma was very sexy, just like my mom. They're very girly. They like their jewelry, their makeup, their perfume. They like all of that stuff. And I'm not that much like that, but they're very girly. And my grandma flaunt her body with sexiness. My grandma loved herself, and that's a beautiful thing. But when you're fluffy, and even if you're not, that doesn't excuse for you to make comments to other people. And my husband was on the fluffy side. Now we're all on the fluffy side. And a lot of people in my family were very fluffy as well. And a lot of us have struggled throughout our years with our weight. Even though if they weren't that fluffy, we've all struggled with our weight. I think everybody in this world, especially women, we have struggled with our weights. I went through my own challenge of weight loss, which I'll get into another time. But what hurted me was that my grandma and my husband probably were like the same size. If not, I think my husband was a little bit skinnier. I'm not too sure. But my grandma had the nerve to say that my husband looked like an elephant. It doesn't matter if she thinks she was joking. But my husband holding his daughter, coming into my family's party, knowing everything they just had done to us months prior. And that's how you grieve? By saying he looks like an elephant? And to you guys, that may not hurt. To you guys, that may be a joke. But it wasn't for us. That shit hurted. Not just hurted me, it hurted him. And I never down talked her husband. I never down talked anybody else's. And so I decided, okay, I'm not really welcome here. Why am I even here? You know what I mean? So I was like, okay, no, never again. And my grandma would try to set up dinner dates for me to go with my cousins, and then turn around. I would say, no, I don't want to. I'm not going to do that. Because you're trying to separate me from my husband. You're not trying to include him. You're trying to bring back what's already messed up. And then she would turn around and say my husband was controlling me. When I would tell her straight out no. Or I would get in arguments with her and tell her no. You know. And then for my daughter's first birthday, for her baptismal, I decided to be the bigger person and invite all my family over. Everybody in my family, I invited them. Despite what happened a year ago, I invited them. And we had 2 comidas that day. We had, I think it was gorenices. And then in the evening, we had pozole. I'm not too sure exactly. But my grandma had got there first with my aunt. And they were dancing, eating. We served them everything. And then later on, when my cousins got there and other family members got there, my grandma told them that I hadn't feed her. That all that time she was there, I hadn't offered her a plate. And then I have one of my aunts come and tell me that I hadn't fed her. And I was like, what? And right there, you know, and I still didn't learn. Even though right there I knew what my grandma was doing. I knew, it was hurtful because I never thought my grandma would do that to me. I never thought she would be that person. And my mom didn't fall into that. My mom still kept a relationship with us. My mom and dad, she still was there with us, for us. I don't know what conversations they did have, her and my grandma, because my grandma did live with her for a little bit as well. And I don't know what conversations they had. And I'm pretty sure they chismearon. and didn't get things right what they thought they had right. And I don't blame my mom for that or anything. It hurts me, but no one knew the truth because they didn't get to try to know the truth. My husband's family didn't do that because they were there. They presented themselves. They wanted to be in our lives. You know what I mean? And so even though my grandma kept doing those things, I still didn't learn. I still would invite her to parties, this and that. A year or 2 years before my grandma got sick, she had got back with one of her ex-husbands that I was very close to when I was young, and he moved in with her. But she said they were just friends, but later on she said that they were more than friends, and because she didn't want her kids to know the truth, because then they would talk shit. You know what I mean? So he was a mechanic, and he had came over to fix my husband's car, and my grandma would come with him when we used to call him to come and fix the cars and stuff, check out the cars. And I was pregnant with my son at the time, and this was early 2004. And my grandma would tell my mother-in-law, because my daughter is a twin of her dad. She looks just like her dad. And my grandma got upset that my daughter looked exactly like her dad. And she told my suegra, este niño que va a tener se va a parecer a ella y a su familia. No se va a parecer a él, se va a parecer a ella. Which is probably not wrong. But why would she say that? Because she was bothered. Because she said it. She did. Because my daughter looked like her dad. So now she's saying that this pregnancy, that my son will look like me and her family, not like his family. And that hurted me. Because even though if she was trying to come from a good place, it hurted me. You know what I mean? Because what did it matter if my kids looked like me or him or both? What did it matter? And so it was just never happiness. It was just always something, always picking at something. And I love my grandma to death. But sometimes the good times make the bad times win. And I don't even know where I'm going no more with this. But I want to get into my pregnancies, because those had issues as well. And but yeah, at the end of the day, our love story, this is why we love each other so much, because we have been through hell and back. We have been through our struggles. We have been through shit. And I'm going to share more things that me and him went through as well. And even though me and him went through bad issues in our relationship, it's not giving my family, oh, you were right. No, it's not that. Because that's part of being in a relationship. You go through your shit. You know what I mean? And I know my family understand that because they all went through stuff. Their stories are not mine to tell, but I know they all have went through stuff, through their marriages, maybe not just one or second relationships or third, kids, having kids with other people, marriages and then divorces, which I'm not proud of, and I'm not clapping on that. I'm just saying it's never okay to talk down or talk on anybody else's life. Yeah, we all chismear. ¿Quién no chismear? That's part of life. But when you make up stories and when you put shit in other people's head and they believe that, that's when the problem is. Anyways, I love my grandma. I love my mom. I love my family. But these are just little things that happen in our relationship, and it's part of our love story because even though we were in love, we had to go through that. We had to go through the crying, the hurt, the arguments, Well, that's my family. That's your family. This, that, and the third. And families do play a big part in a relationship when you allow that. That's why with my kids, I'm in therapy. I'm learning what I don't want to do, what I don't want to repeat, mistakes I don't want to make, that I don't want to hurt my kids in the future. I don't want to use words that are going to hurt them and offend them or offend their family in their life, because I know how it fucking feels. So, anyways, I'm gonna leave this for now, and another part 2 will come out, continuing with this and my pregnancies, because in both of my pregnancies, I went through a struggle in both. And so yeah, in all this, at the end of the day, it's happy story because it's part of my life. And even though some parts sound sad or crying or whatnot, but at the end of the day, it's happy because I wouldn't be who I am today without all of this that happened. I don't want to erase anything that happened, because all that happened has made me who I am today at 42 years old. So, yeah. So anyways, have a good weekend. And for this week, your affirmation is go clean out that junk drawer. Go clean out that closet. Go clean out that car. Go clean out that desk. Get rid of some clutter. It makes you feel good, honestly. Even if it's a little corner. Don't do everything all at once, because you'll get overwhelmed and too stressed and you won't get it done. But just take one corner. Take a clutter out of that drawer, out of that closet, etc. Have a female weekend, Raza.